60 million years ago, the ancestor of the modern elephant was the Moetherium. It was a semi-aquatic, pig-like mammal that weighed about 5 kilograms. Over millions of years, that tiny creature scaled up into a biological marvel. But that enormous size and those massive ivory tusks placed a permanent target on its back. For centuries, humans have hunted them down simply to extract those highly valuable natural materials. Harvesting parts was only half the equation, though. We also wanted their labor and their obedience. And that presents a unique logistical problem. How do you physically dominate and control a creature that can crush you without a second thought? We saw the brutal reality of that problem in 1994. An elephant named Tyke broke during a circus performance in Hawaii. She killed her trainer and ran through the city streets before police shot her over 100 times. Tyke's violent end is a recurring cost of this industry. Maintaining a wild giant in a ring for entertainment requires a foundation built on extreme physical breaking and legal distance. To understand this system, we have to look back to ancient India, where humans first figured out how to turn them into living war machines. They invented the ankusha, a sharp metal hook or goad. It functions through the immediate application of pain, hacking into elephant biology to force obedience. But battlefield control was mostly an illusion. When these massive animals were wounded by spears and arrows, they panicked. And a panicked elephant doesn't care whose side it's on. At the Battle of Hydaspes, King Porus staked his entire strategy on an elephant charge against Alexander the Great. The Macedonians focused their attacks heavily on the elephants, and the wounded giants went berserk, trampling their own Indian infantry. Fast forward a couple thousand years to the big top, and the setting looks very different. But the mechanics of physical dominance are exactly the same. Circuses frequently claim they train animals using positive reinforcement, but behind the scenes, trainers rely on prolonged periods of chaining and the modern descendant of the ankusha, the bullhook, to maintain authority. They force these massive animals to sit up or balance on tiny metal pedestals. This exacts a severe, unnatural toll on a skeletal structure that evolved to distribute massive weight evenly across 4 thick legs. Then there are the environmental hazards. When the show ends, these animals are locked inside narrow metal boxcars for cross-country trips. In multiple documented cases, elephants and big cats have died from heat stroke, trapped inside trailers reaching 120 degrees. Physical control of a giant always relies on trauma, and when trauma triggers a violent reaction, the industry turns to the legal system for protection. In the US, legal protection is mostly a mirage. The 1966 Animal Welfare Act provides vague standards, relying on a severely understaffed squad of inspectors. When violations are caught, animals aren't confiscated. Monopolies simply absorb small fines as basic operational costs. The state level is even worse. 23 individual states have written specific legislative loopholes that exempt circuses entirely from their local anti-cruelty laws. This lack of protection extends to the very end of their lives. When circuses decide an elephant is no longer profitable, many castaways are legally sold to canned hunt facilities, where patrons pay to shoot tame, captive animals for sport. By combining vague federal standards with specific state exemptions, the legal code creates a buffer for the industry, allowing commerce to continue even when welfare standards fail. But the image of humans in total control is finally starting to fracture under the weight of escalating animal rampages and a growing global awareness. While the US treats exotic animals as property, the international legal landscape is rapidly shifting. In 2009, Bolivia implemented an absolute ban on circus animals. Meanwhile, the European Union and Canada are imposing strict mandates for space, rest, and the psychological well-being of the species. When you look at what an elephant actually needs, it's clear. They are highly social, intelligent creatures that require vast, unconfined natural habitats to thrive. Achieving true animal welfare requires us to face a difficult legal reality. Our laws must stop defining elephants as tools and recognize them as sentient beings. An evolutionary masterpiece, perfectly adapted over 60 million years, was never meant to be a battlefield tank or a circus prop. Ending the cycle of abuse means dismantling our legal definition of subjugation.